Welcome back. We're picking up our discussion looking at the stigma of obesity and asking what role the media plays. I'm joined by Dr. Rebecca Poole, Director of Research and Anti-Stigma Initiatives at the Rudd Center for Food Policy and Obesity here at Yale University in New Haven. Now, we were talking about some of the issues people face when they're obese, and I wonder, when we look at the causes, apart from unhealthy eating, genetics, and we can touch on that as well, but pick up the magazines almost anywhere in the world, everyone's slim, everything is based around people being a certain way. Even the coverage of on the media, you know, in the television sets is all about how to get thin, how to be slim. How much is the media responsible?
That's exactly right. The media plays a very important role in the origins of weight bias. If we think about portrayals of overweight and obese individuals in television and film, they're very often portrayed negatively. And science has actually looked at this as well. They have analyzed the content of some of the top-rated television shows on the top networks here in America and found that very obese characters are shown in television, and when they are shown, they're very often in stereotypical roles. They're shown binge eating, eating junk food. They're the target of ridicule and harassment and teasing. And they're very rarely shown having social or romantic relationships. And when we consider how much media we consume as a culture, it's really not surprising that we have negative attitudes. We're starting to see the impact of this on kids as well. We know that children who watch more television tend to negatively stereotype an overweight female more often.
The thing is that, you know, Americans spend, what, $40 billion a year on the diet industry, which goes out to make it look easy and simple and so on. And I wonder to what extent, you know, that industry, the diet industry, bears some responsibility.
I think it does. Our billion-dollar diet industry is founded on the premise that if you just work hard enough, you can get the body you want. And with this diet plan or that new diet pill, you'll be able to achieve success. And as we were talking about before, that really does not reflect the current state of science, and yet it perpetuates a message that body weight is within personal control. So I think that's very problematic.
So to what extent is it a balance between helping people who are extremely obese be able to deal with their own issues of being, you know, stigmatized and personal confidence and so on, and on the other hand, encouraging healthy eating? How much of a balance is it between the two? Should we just accept that people are getting bigger and bigger and the obesity scale is being slackened and allowing heavier people, or should there be a concerted effort to try and encourage healthy eating?
I mean, the way that we usually think about it is that we want to fight the issue of obesity, but we don't want to fight obese people. We want to create an environment that makes it easy for people to be healthy, which we currently don't do in our environment. At the same time, we want to make sure that anyone who is struggling with their weight is treated with respect and courtesy and equally as anybody else.
Let me put another email to you. This is regarding sort of genetically modified foods, and this is from Kentucky in the US. And Zaheera says, genetically modified food is not as nutritious as fresh, unaltered food. One cause of overeating is the lack of nutrition, which leaves people feeling unsatisfied when they eat. Mess with Mother Nature and she will mess back. Now, unfortunately, most of the advertising is for quick, easy, convenient food. And to what extent, again, is there a need to try and educate people better from an early age that what they're putting into their bodies is going to have a long-term impact? Well,
I certainly think that we need to equal the playing field. I mean, right now, unhealthy foods are heavily advertised, and 95% of those foods are for children, and they are sugared cereals, soda, junk food. You know, when was the last time we saw a television advertisement for a carrot or a banana? We need to equal the playing field and make sure that we make it easy for people to be healthy in this environment, and I think that's a really important step to reducing the obesity epidemic.
Now, we had an email that had come in from an Omar Yakubi from Burke in Virginia here in the US, and he says he used to be overweight, and he overcame it by exercising more and limiting his calories, and he wants to know, he basically said he was once overweight and lost a lot by actually cutting down to 1,000 calories a day, and he lost 40 pounds in 6 months. Now, he said going hungry wasn't pleasant at first, but of course, you know, he recognized it was healthy for him. So his email, the bit that we've extracted to put to you, it says, how do we tell those who cannot help, you know, those being overweight while giving tough love to those who are in a position to do something about it? That is, some people will never be smaller. They'll always. How is a balance struck between allowing people who are, there's no way they can actually lose, they've got genetics or whatever, to still fit into society without the stigma, and then give the tough love to those who can do something about it?
Well, I think we want to emphasize health rather than appearance. This is especially important for children who may not be able to lose a significant amount of weight. When we talk about losing weight, it's for the purpose of being healthier. When we send the message that you need to lose weight to look a certain way, or to be thin, or to conform to certain societal ideals, that becomes very problematic because many times those ideals are very unrealistic and cannot be achieved. So especially when we're talking about weight loss and trying to become healthier among youth, we want to really emphasize health rather than thinness.
And the media seems to put a lot of the responsibility on individuals. It's, you can do something. And I wonder if, to some degree, that isolating an individual is a negative thing, and that's what's causing some of the stigmatizing.
You're definitely right. When we attribute the causes of obesity to personal control, that increases blame and leads us to stigmatize an individual. And we know from scientific studies that the more that a person is blamed for their weight, the more likely they are to be stigmatized. Whereas when we believe that a person's obesity is the result of some other factor outside of their control, such as a medical condition, we're much less likely to stigmatize them. And so again, I think we need to really look at the causes of obesity and understand that body weight is the result of a complex interaction between genetics, biology, and the environment.
Is there anything that can be done, for example, to educate people to what's being put into their bodies? For example, high corn fructose syrup, the first scientifically engineered sugar, seemed to have changed things once it came on the market from 67 onwards, 1967. Now, I wonder how much people are aware of the way food is structured now, and how these kind of things, sugar has permeated everything.
Well, certainly I think that there are a lot of nutrition education efforts underway, but I'm not sure that that's going to be successful if all we're making available is foods with high fructose corn syrup. So I think we need to think bigger, and we need to think larger and find ways to make the options healthier without those ingredients. In
terms of dealing with the stigma that people feel then, being obese, what steps could be taken now? Have we reached a point where the scales have been, increased for everyone? America now has a different scale. It just seems to allow for people to be bigger and bigger. Is it too late? All can be done.
To reduce obesity?
And the stigma around
I think if we're going to reduce weight bias, then we need major shifts in societal attitudes. And that certainly means increasing awareness and education that this is a legitimate form of stigma that has negative consequences for emotional and physical health. It also means that we need to change media portrayals of overweight and obese individuals. We need to find examples of role models that challenge weight-based stereotypes. And as we were talking about before, we need legislation in place so that we communicate to our citizens that this is not a form of discrimination that will be tolerated.
In doing your studies, what surprised you the most about what you found?
I think just how pervasive this is, that it occurs in healthcare settings, in employment settings, in educational settings, at home, that a person who is overweight or obese can really expect to confront a great deal of stigma on a daily basis wherever they go.
And to what extent does it surprise you that it's not been in open debate? We were talking before the show, and you said it's great at least we're willing to talk about this.
Yeah, 5 years ago, I don't think we would be having this conversation. Certainly there is much more awareness now than there has been. That may be because of the increasing rates of obesity. There are certainly more cases surfacing in the media of employment-related discrimination towards obese individuals. So I think slowly we're starting to be ready to talk about it.
How do you envisage some kind of legislation actually being enacted? It becomes, there's an element of subjectiveness in it. And that's challenging that in court is going to be difficult.
Well, Massachusetts actually recently introduced legislation and held a hearing at the end of March, and everyone that went to the hearing was in favor of the bill. And I think people are ready for this. I think that we need to look at weight as we would gender or race or any other form of discrimination.
Now, is there a danger that by allowing, or say by protecting this condition, which is obviously an unhealthy condition for most people, there's a danger of not trying to deal with it, that actually taking the pressure off people to actually look after themselves better?
I think actually the opposite will happen. When people feel stigmatized or shamed, as we talked about before, sometimes they resort to avoiding physical activity and eating more unhealthy foods. I think when people feel empowered to make changes and healthy lifestyle changes, and when the focus is on overall health rather than appearance, that people have more freedom to make healthy changes in their lives.
Of course, travel, travel in America is it's a very sedentary lifestyle. People don't walk around, don't really have the kind of lifestyle that allows them to exercise. And to what degree do you think there needs to be an education program? You were saying that obviously people have to be aware of diet as well, but in terms of education programs for exercise, a combined effort to try and reduce obesity?
I think that would help. I think also, having spent a number of years treating patients who are obese, hearing their stories, it made me realize that many people are not exercising because of the way that they have been ridiculed in public when they go for a walk, when they are running, going for a jog. People make comments, shout insults, and that doesn't make anyone want to go out and exercise.
Although I find in America, certainly compared with other countries into which I travel, people are much more willing to, irrespective of their size, to put on clothes and get out there. There's much more, people are much more visible, it seems, here with that.
That's certainly true, and I hope that will encourage people to keep doing exercise and to be healthy.
Now, if there's a next step in terms of your research, where do you take it to find the next step? I mean, what happens from here for you?
Well, you know, there's so much research now documenting the prevalence of this issue. What we need are research efforts to find strategies to reduce this form of bias. There are only a handful of studies that exist, and they have very mixed results. This is a very resistant bias in terms of trying to change it. So we need to find effective ways to reduce this form of bias.
We have a call on the line from Illinois, and Gavin's with us. Gavin, what would you like to ask?
Riz, I just wanted to ask the guest about the effect of government-based food coupons on obesity in poorer communities in America.
Interesting. Okay.
Sorry, could you repeat?
Yes, Gavin was asking about the impact of government food coupons in poorer parts of society in America.
Well, we certainly know that people are taking advantage of things like WIC food stamps. Unfortunately, a lot of times those coupons can be used for unhealthy foods. And so, we need to make sure that when food stamps and different government subsidies are available, that we're using them towards healthy foods to help people become healthier.
There is a strange thing I find in America where the cost of food is disproportionate. You know, buy one piece it's X amount, and buy 100 pieces it's X plus a tiny fraction. So people tend to go towards huge amounts.
They certainly do, and when we think about unhealthy foods and fast food establishments, this food is available, it's extremely affordable, and it's everywhere we look. Whereas healthier foods are much more expensive, and it becomes very difficult for many families to be healthy because of that.
Have you been able to do follow-ups, or is that the next step with people you've talked to up to now in terms of your study on obesity and the stigma? Is there a natural follow-up with the individuals already spoken to?
Certainly, in some of the longitudinal work that's been done, we see a lasting impact of stigma on people's lives. And I really don't see that changing until we can shift societal attitudes in a major way. I mean, this really has a lasting impact on quality of life for people.
And in terms of, now separating the groups, as you say, more information will come from overseas on the impact in other societies. You expect more information to reveal how other societies are dealing with this?
I do. I mean, I think more and more people are ready to look at this issue in their own cultures. And I look forward to seeing what the findings are so that we can try to really find strategies that work across different cultures.
Well, Dr. Rebecca Poole, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for being with us. On the next show, we talk to former Minnesota governor and professional wrestler Jesse Ventura. He's fed up with American politics and is calling for a revolution. We'll see you next time.